Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a green day today. I'm going to go over my daily plan that I shared on StockTwits. If you don't already follow me there, I will leave a link in the description, but it's also right there if you'd like. And one more thing before we get into it, a few people raised concerns that they weren't able to see what I was talking about or pointing out. So I lowered the frame rate a little bit. Hopefully that helps, since I'm running my charting software and recording, my computer's kind of crapping out a bit. But hopefully this works. If not, please let me know and I'll find a solution for it. So I started with my daily plan, which I broke into steps. And step one was looking at Globex's distribution. And I asked, what is it telling us? Where's value? So I will pull this picture up separately so we could better look at it rather than looking at it through StockTwits. And here it is. So I've said, I may have been yesterday's video. If not, it was a different one. I was talking about TPO charts. TPO charts are time price opportunity charts, and they allow you to better see market structure. You like to see where price is happy. When price is happy, basically you don't want to trade where price is happy. You want to trade the extremes of balance areas. So my first question was, what was overnight's distribution? And you could see we had what looks like a capital D, or bell-shaped curve. That means price was happy to trade here, not one directional, chopping around. We did come down a little bit, but nothing sustained, and we came back up and chopped around. And then I asked, where's value? So if you're looking at these blue lines on the bottom, these are value area lows. So you could say TPO VA. TPO VA on the top is value area highs. So we have a whole bunch of intersecting ones. You can see from here, here, there, and of course these. Not so much on Friday's price action, I believe this was, because we're so one directional. And something else to note with TPO charts, you could see I've marked here single prints. Single prints, this is what helps you look at market structure, because while we're happy in this area because we have overlapping value areas, so this is called balance. The market is balanced in this area. It is happy to trade in this area. So price is going to want to explore where it is not happy and fill this structure. Those single prints, price action does not like to leave single prints. So what you'll often see is price come into this area, chop around, maybe build a bid or distribute position before moving down or going to the next area, which would be this another set of single prints. And that's actually exactly what happened today as I outlined in the plan. So let's go to step two. Where are we? Okay. So step two, creating a daily plan, step two. Now I moved over to the footprint charts and I asked where are buyers located and where are sellers located. Where would their stop be? What does the zero print mean? And so let me pull up this picture now. Bear with me. All right, let me zoom in. All right. So we could clearly see that there is a selling balance on the top. Sellers are active here. This is the largest volume node. I have this coded or programmed rather to be volume by price along the sides. So sellers are clearly active in this area, active here, and I said, what does the zero print mean? I believe I touched on this yesterday. A zero print is temporary exhaustion, or exhaustion. In this case, it was temporary. So this was bought up, sellers engaged here, as you could see on the footprint, big selling imbalances. The delta is all negative here. Push it up until buyers could not push price any higher, meaning exhaustion, and that's what that means. So And then I asked, where are buyers? We don't have any buying imbalance. Again, this just chopped around, but sellers were more aggressive towards the highs. Not too many buyers, sorry. But nonetheless, we could see kind of a triple distribution, more so like that. And that's just good to know, because when we come back into this volume node where we see the 19.3 and 18.9, or these two 15s down here, that's likely to provide a small bounce, but yeah, just something to pair with your TPO chart. That's step number 2. And now you're going to go to a bear candlestick chart, or at least I do. So this is a 30-minute, and I said, where would stops be located for longs, for shorts, and yeah. One more thing I forgot to touch on this. So I was asking about stops. Stops would be above, seller stops would be above the selling imbalance. If we are above where they're trying to sell, that means their positions are in the negative and their stops are being ran. As for buyers, again, we have no real buying imbalance, so we can't say for certain, looking at a daily footprint chart, this daily footprint chart at the time, where buyer stops would be. Sorry, I forgot that. But let's move on to this next picture. And I kind of put a few animated question marks to point your eyes. Again, this is something I've touched on as well. Let's just let this load for a second. There we are. And all these question marks are around what? Lows and highs. Those are stops are. When you're going long or you're going short, you're hopefully putting stops, and chances are you're putting your stops, if you're long, below a low, and if you're short, above a high. It's very common, and that is what the market looks for. The market looks to run stops because the market likes to get liquidity. So if you're looking to short, and this is our current candle at this time, you're going to want to see a run of liquidity. You short with the big hands, you see it on the footprint that they are selling, and then you take it down. And the same way for the long, you're looking for a run of relative equal lows. Very basic market theory concept, but it's very important in real use. And the last step of creating the daily plan was just putting it all together, and this is where I showed my daily plan. So I'll pull this up. So this was my daily plan going into the day. We'll start bottom and work our way up. Actually, I'll start from this first buy zone right here. So I said be cautious along here. Do not expect a low of day type level here. More of a 7.5, maybe 15-point bounce before, if we were to trade here, before revisiting or visiting this lower buy area. So I said to be very cautious and definitely take profits quicker in something like this. And my reasoning was because it wasn't so much a key level. We've already traded here a few times. So yeah, we would run these lows, run some stops and bounce, but sellers have tried to push this down quite a few times, so that if we were to come again, it was more likely that they were to go into price discovery for more buyers to be active, which would be there. I hope that makes sense. And then moving down, I said things may get ugly if we get going to the downside. And I just stressed that if you're going to go long off levels or zones, I say this all the time, levels are levels and zones are zones until you see on the footprint that market makers, large hands, whatever you like to call them, are on your side. And what does that mean? It means when we're looking at the footprint and we have all this volume built out, if we're looking to go long and we're coming in here, we want to see big volume nodes here with buying imbalances. We want to see that there is a bid. And if a bid is active, we want to be active with the bid and ride this up. And then sell zones, very straightforward. I will go into the actual trades into here because these did trade and did provide trade opportunities. But that was the trade plan going into the day. Okay. Now I updated the daily footprint and I said take note of the distribution of volume. Very telling. Maybe a continue of this after open. We'll go over this in much more detail in the video recap. So I'll pull up a bigger picture once again. So now, where before we couldn't see as clear where buyers and sellers are located, or buyers more so, now we can. We do have a buying imbalance, a big volume node in the middle. And what this was, as I pointed out before, we had the exhaustion towards the lows, and we started to work our way down into this large volume area. Now before this screenshot, if you remember before, we didn't have a buying imbalance. So what happened when we came here? Buyers became active here. They're trying to defend this position of where other buyers were. And then as they did that, we start to move up, and then sellers from here and new sellers are trying to work their way down. They're trying to push price down. So what happens? Well, this is going obviously one of either way. We go below this, we're going to start running all these buyer stops. We go up from here, we run all the seller stops, and then the heat is put on these sellers to really defend their position, or else start ripping faces off. So let's move on to the next post. And this was a warning right after open that I issued, if you will, because we came into the first sell zone, and I said make sure market makers are on your side before entering your trade. And that's exactly what I just touched on. Levels are levels and zones are zones until the footprint confirms. One second. So you could see this is the 4-hour candle. Let me zoom in just a little bit. So looking at the 4-hour candle, as we came into the first sell zone, something you should take note immediately is we have a selling imbalance all the way down here, but price is trading up here. So what does that mean? It means all the market participants who are selling in this area are underwater. And that's why we had such an aggressive move up. And you could see that these volume nodes, these volume nodes are pretty thin compared to that one and starting here. What does that mean with these thin volume nodes? Once these sellers their stop got ran, they were tripping over themselves to exit, and that's what causes thin volume nodes and fast price movement. So I was warning to be careful, not to be too eager to short yet. You can see that sellers are active here. The volume node is building. But if you look towards the top, we're still putting in big numbers of contracts being traded here. And what you're going to want to see is more of an exhaustion on the footprint before entering a trade. So that was just a warning. And then eventually the trade did present itself. And we had, as you can see here, about a 13-point pullback, which on the E-mini is $650 a contract from the zone. No need to pull this picture up. I believe this is, yes, this is a 1 minute. So even if you're just looking at this in a traditional technical analysis, you could see that we're starting to get wicks to the top side, pull back into it, run these highs, and you get your nice trade. So if we look at this through the footprint, if this isn't clear to you on the candlestick chart, I'm sure it will be much cleaner on the footprint chart. And the footprint chart did allow for an add back, and that's all I was showing here was So I took the initial short at 10 points. I've said always at 10 points I pay myself and then let runners run or just stop me out at break even. And the footprint allowed for a short, so I added back full size and then before cutting that again. So I'll go to the footprint chart and we'll actually look at that entry. I guess I didn't post that. Here we are. So this was around 10 a.m. So if we're looking, oh, it's over here. So this is what I was looking at in real time. Around here, in this area is when I issued that warning that I was just talking about to wait. And then what are we waiting for? Well, we're waiting for a zero print signaling that price is exhausted. Buyers rather are exhausted. We'll wait for this next candle open, and we ran a whole bunch of stops. Still no touching here until we come down into here. Because you could see, look at these numbers, 3,500, 3,400, 33, 32, and then here even 5,500, 6,000. There's a lot of contracts being done here. Someone is selling into all these buyers. Look how we have a buying imbalance so high into this price action. Someone is buying this and then someone is selling into them. So we saw exhaustion. That is check 1, and now we're going to want to see this bid start to thin out. We want to see that buyers are no longer active, and that's what we see on this candle open right here. What we see here is very, very thin volume. Only 500, 400 contracts done compared to when we were doing 5,000 contracts, more than that just in the previous 5-minute candle. And that is what gives us our short. So if I pull back up StockTwits, I said watch this distribution. I paid myself at the 10 points and have a stop at break even. So I will show what was telling from this distribution. I'll pull up the full-size screenshot. So this is obviously a 30-minute chart, and we were short into the selling zone. Next 30 opens, exactly what we want to see, thin numbers, selling balance on top, and that's when we continue down. And we have thick price or thick volume nodes here, which is good. Like to see it when you're on your way down. But as we started to come down, we came into the 30, this is the 9 EMA and the 30-minute, and look at that. Very, very small numbers with the buying imbalance. So this is telling us that shorts are exhausted. Now that doesn't mean the short is completely off. That means pay yourself, and price is going to come back into these high volume nodes. Now what the sellers want to do is add to their positions, build out these volume nodes, and then continue down. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. So you pay yourself there, and as we start to come up, one of two things are going to happen. The sellers are going to add to their positions, or they'll be ran over. And the way to see if they are adding to their positions is right here in the delta. If they're adding to their short position, you'll see these negative numbers become negative 18, negative 1900, negative 2000. Or if it's in the other case scenario where the bull starts to take over, you'll see them start chipping away at this delta, and it'll start becoming green, how it is down here. So very important to take note of that and watch that while in a trade. And I just shared my execution chart of that ad. Pull that up. Just to show that you can read which direction the market is going in, and take advantage of it. I saw a lot of people on StockTwits complaining, but yeah, just short with the selling imbalance, buy with the buying imbalance. And of course, with context of your levels, you're not going to buy every buying imbalance or short every selling imbalance. And exactly what I warned against happened. So we got our initial sell off the sell zone, but that was it. So you take your coin, get stopped out the rest, that's it. So I said 2 reasons that I took a profit target on the short. I'll cover them in my video. And I will pull that up. Let me just see what this looks like. All right. So there's 2 reasons, of course, for me to cover down here. There's actually 3. First, which I already said, is that I always cover some of my position or sell some of my position at 10 points in the money. So that was number 1 reason. Number 2, as we came down, we had very thin tape down here and a buying imbalance. Not only do we have a buying imbalance, but you could see the thin volume at this volume node, and then when this buying imbalance comes in, it's thicker than the past few. Excuse me. That is a very telltale sign that price is going to at least temporarily reverse. So I protected the profits and took a partial there. This was, I believe, let me double check, when price continued up, yes, into the next volume, the next sell zone that I had highlighted in the daily plan. And all I said was, sellers are trying here, but to watch how this volume node, let me pull up the actual picture. Sorry it's taking so long to load. Okay, finally. So sellers are active. We have a selling imbalance. But something I wanted to point out was just because we have a selling imbalance, even though it's 17,000, 18,000 contracts being traded here with only 2,000, 3,000 up top, something we do like to see. But you have to look at the context of this. Sure, selling balance, bigger volume node than the past few, but look at all the volume down below. We're going to have to, or not we, but market makers, larger hands, are going to need to distribute more shares at the highs, exhaust the buyers before we move down. So the footprint helps you with patience. Like a lot of people like to take a trade off a level just because a 1-minute candle or a 5-minute candle created a doji. It's more than that. You need the volume behind you to push price into your direction. So this was looking good so far. This is what you want to see, but that doesn't mean to take the trade yet. And this trade I actually spoke about in great detail through live commentary on StockTwits. And I pointed out sellers are adding here. I knew they would try here because this was a level that I shared today on my daily plan, which I went over with you guys in the beginning of this video on how I came up with this level. So I'm pulling up the picture for the updated footprint. The one that I just pulled up was a 4-hour, and this as well as a 4-hour chart. It really helps a lot, of course, to look on larger time frames when you're trying to catch bigger moves, because you get a better context of where the volume is. So we're starting to pull below this volume node. You could see it was before, I believe, 17, 18, or 19,000 contracts. Now they added a good 4,000 or 5,000 contracts Here, this volume node is pretty big. Still not as big as these, but we started pulling below. So just because we pull below doesn't mean we're going to tank. What's going to happen, and what did happen, we'll see, is that buyers are going to try to hold it here. There's going to be people trying to buy, thinking it's going for the next leg up. And then there's also going to be buying from the people who are shorting up here. They're going to short, they're going to cover some here, and price is going to bounce around until there's a clear winner. Now, in that bouncing around, these two volume nodes are going to get bigger and bigger. These are going to get smaller because there's going to be more volume. These are going to get smaller, sorry, because there's going to be more volume done at the top. So I've said before, what you want to see when you're trying to go short is a P-shaped distribution, and when you're trying to go long is a B-shaped distribution. And what that means is that large or most of the volume, if you're going short, is done at the highs, meaning that retail is buying the highs, institutions, market makers, large hands are selling into them, and then we have a sharp move down with thin volume. And it's the same thing here, but in reverse when you're going long. I hope that makes sense. It will if it doesn't yet. And surely enough, once that volume node built out, we got a beautiful pullback. We actually got multiple pullbacks. So originally, this is a 1 minute chart, I believe. And you can see how clean this is just on a 1 minute chart. So you get a 10-point pullback. This came back into the zone. Sellers added to their position. They built out that volume node, and I believe it gave like another 15 points. But we'll see. So I said, see how buyers stepped in. Now it's time for sellers to add their position or else. So this is exactly what I was talking about on this last footprint picture. And I will pull this up. Now again, this was all live. I was all sharing this on StockTwits. I like to think it's valuable info. All right. So we pull down from this. Oh, where's my pen? We pulled down from the selling imbalance, this volume node of sellers, into the buyers. And now you can see once we did that, this volume node actually became bigger than the selling imbalance. So a lot of support here and people selling. There's going to be some low slammers trying to sell this, thinking it's going straight down. But if you're looking for the short, this is exactly what you want to see. You want to see this P starting to form, still, of course, not there yet because of how much volume is done underneath. But hopefully you can see that this volume shelf is building right into the sell area, exactly where we were looking. And my next picture, I said, see how sellers built that volume node. Ball is in their court now. It is crucial to know these things if you want to trade. So let's look at what I was talking about there. Also going to take a sip of water. Sorry about that. All right. So this, once we were looking at that last picture where the buyers added even more than the sellers, we came back into the sellers, and this is what you see so many times on the footprint, is buyers and sellers kind of hot potatoing price back and forth, and they're battling is what they're doing. And you could see that the sellers did their job. They're building the volume shelf bigger than the buyers. So again, if you remember before when we were looking at the daily footprint, when buyers and sellers were right next to each other, and this is what I mentioned about the sellers having it in their court, they have to do their part and add, as they did. But again, we get below this buying imbalance, these buyers are going to be forced to sell their positions because they are negative, and this can push price down, and the same in the opposite direction. We'll squeeze if we get above the seller's entry prices. Yep. So let's see. and this was another 10-point pullback. Oh, okay, yeah, this ended up going a little bit further. But yeah, once you see the sellers doing their job as they did, adding to their volume node, that is a good sign to enter with them. And exactly, you got another 10-point pullback. And I pointed out here, I said to look how the distribution is starting to look like a P. And you could see it much clearer now. I'll actually zoom in. Maybe I won't. This isn't letting me. But as this loads, you can definitely see this does look more like a P, but this isn't the cleanest P-shaped distribution there is, of course. And the same thing that happened when we were talking about the daily footprint and we pulled into the large volume node that was in the middle and buyers defended their positions rather. The same exact thing happened intraday. That's all the market is just selling, either supporting your bid or losing your bid, and that's all it is. So the same thing happened intraday. We had sellers pile in, got a nice distribution. We came down into where buyers were last active in here, intraday, and this was of course at the first sell zone, and it bounced right off of our first sell zone. These buyers that were in here, they defended their positions, added to it. Not only that, but I'm sure this 24,000 contracts sold here, this 36,000 contracts sold here, not everyone stopped out. So when price is coming back to their average, they're just trying to look and get out at their break even. And in this case, they were lucky enough to. And I said, see what happens when we pull under the P, now 15 points off the sell zone. A little repetitive now at this point. I won't bring up this picture because I spoke about this, but as soon as we get under that buying imbalance, as I was talking about, when the buyers and sellers are stacked like that, we get under the buyers, or getting under the P-shaped distribution, and stops are going to be ran, and price is going to aggressively move in one direction. I will pull up this picture, and this is what I was talking about when we came into the first sell zone. I'll make it a bigger for you guys. And right here, price pulled into that first sell zone. These large volume nodes, these buyers, they added it to the position and sent price back up. Something that is a little telltale as to why we wouldn't get the continuation down and have a sell day was because that P-shaped distribution, I said it wasn't that clean. Sometimes you'll see distributions where it's huge volume nodes and then very, very little ones. So you know that price is going to go down into a different high volume area, probably much lower in price. But of course, in this case, it wasn't so much like that. So not to expect a fade, an all-day trend day. And that was it. That's my live commentary and my daily plan for the day. Again, I post live commentary, my daily plans I post them before open, all on StockTwits, and I will see you all tomorrow.